and I was looking for him, and then he finally looked over the rail when I was going down. I looked up at him, and it was like 1976. I asked him, I said, "What year is it?" He said, I could hear the 76, and so I knew it was 1976. I thought I worked there too for a while when I first got out of service. So I worked there, and going to college and played music. So that's why I knew it was 76. But they can actually take you back. You were talking about time, that like you had that bright light in the New Mexico desert. I believe if they can take you forward in time, they can take you back in time. And I think when they abduct you, they can actually take that clock and take it back. And then when you come back, you don't sense any loss. Or you do sense an hour loss. I sensed an hour loss a couple of times, about an hour or so. It was what the losses were. But so I actually believe they can set that clock back when they take you. And when you come back, it's the time that you realize you were, that you were taken.
Well,
so they can play with time. They can play with your mind. And it's scary. Yeah.
Well, you were lucky too, because, I've had a guest on my show that he was abducted. And when he was in his car when he was abducted. And then when he was put back not in his car, but, standing next to his car. His car keys were in the car was locked. And, they made a little mistake. They miscalculated where, he should be. It was pouring down rain. I've heard cases where people have been abducted, and when they were returned, they weren't quite returned in the right place. Again, I've had guests claim that when they were abducted, they were wearing pajamas. When they came back, the pajamas were backwards, or the lady's bra was put on backwards, or weird things. Now, I don't think a woman would go to bed at night and somehow, put the bra on backwards.
Right. Yeah. I've had a couple of car incidents where I was coming back from a house in St. Louis, and something made me feel real weird. I knew I was being hit with magnetic energy. And I was driving, and it looked like I was driving right into the concrete barriers on the interstate there. But then I was turning, and I turned, and I went down this hill, and I went for a couple of miles. I went into this filling station. I asked the guy, I said, "Where am I at?" So I was kind of out of it. I was kind of stunned. And, yeah, I think what they do, it's just like our computers. We can upload, download. I think they're uploading from us sometimes when they send that energy down to your mind. They upload and find out where you're at, what you've been doing, how much do you know. I think they want to know that. They want to know how we're progressing in our knowledge of UFOs. Also, that's one of the many things we're trying to figure out, or when we're ready, for disclosure. I think a lot of people aren't ready, but if I see them, I'm going to say, "Yeah, hi, I met you before." So,
but my feeling, the disclosure, for a while, a lot of groups, going back 3 months ago, swore within about 30 days they thought disclosure was going to happen. And now I've been in and out of broadcasting since 1976. My first show was paranormal. And you don't know how many times through the years, being in radio, I've heard that disclosure is around the corner. Well, it hasn't happened.
Right.
And I don't think the government is going to disclose anything till they absolutely have to, because they've been lying to the public, not just our country, but many countries have. If anybody's going to be, I hate to say it, Brazil, for example, when they get reports, the government comes out and on their news and says, "Hey, there was a report of a UFO over whatever." Okay, they come out and tell. I think if ever it's going to be disclosure, it's going to be coming from Russia before our country. What scares me, seriously, if a UFO landed or crashed in a populated area, what would our government do? Would they sterilize the area and make some excuse that a terrorist bomb went off because they don't want that information getting out? Or if a UFO landed, it didn't crash, for example, and they were survivors, are we going to do? I can't remember that movie where that UFO came down and the robot came out, and there was a whole bunch of troops, and they started firing, and the robot, started disintegrating.
The Day the World Stood Still?
Yeah, that movie. That scenario, that I think would probably happen. But again, I honestly think if something came down really fast like that and whatever, I don't know what our government would do. I don't know. They're back, would be backed in a corner.
Gary, I think I know what you're talking about, but there was an incident in Kecksburg back in 1965, I believe it was, where this craft come down, a bell-shaped craft, landed in the woods near a neighborhood, and there was a lot of people who saw it. And they carried it away at night, and they stopped everybody from going around it, but a lot of people saw it before they got it carried away, and they got it on a truck, and they moved it out. And then they told people, even the radio station guy, they said, you didn't see nothing, right? That's when they were forceful. That's when they were saying, you didn't see nothing. And if you did, you won't have a job.
Or
so
you'll be dead.
They were, they were controlling people,
Now,
I don't know if that's what they do now or not.
I can also tell you this. I had a guest on it, wrote about a UFO crash back in, I think, the 1890s, something, Aurora, Texas.
Right.
And where he lived, I think, Midwest or South, I can't remember anymore. It's been a year since he's been on the show. But when he was a kid, his father was a dispatcher for the local police department in that town. They got reports of the local hospital, a UFO landed in the parking lot. And, there was witnesses that saw it, more than one. And so they dispatched the police there. By the time the police got there, the UFO already took off. It was gone. But there was a burn ring in the asphalt, maybe 30, 40 feet around. And also in this burn thing, it was still, smoking when the police got there. There was droplets of mercury, like metal, all around that burn area. Now, they taped it all off, and funny thing is, according to the guy, his father, said the next morning, that the parking lot got repaved during the middle of the night. Now, the next day, 30 miles away, from that little town, there was a lake. There was witnesses that claimed they saw a UFO come out of that lake. Now, my feeling is that UFO came down for some mechanical reason, or maybe overheating, landed for whatever, then took back off, went like the 30 miles, went into that lake to cool down or to make the repairs. Naturally, if they can travel through space, they can go into water, okay? There's been many sightings of UFOs, falling ships coming out of the ocean and all that stuff. It tells me that we are definitely being visited, and they are coming and seeing us. And you being abducted, I believe it, because I've had so many different guests, on my show for the past year that are saying quite a bit of the same stuff that you're saying tonight.
Right. I heard that too, but I some of the things that I think were a little different with mine was I don't know about the static electrical shock that's involved, and I'm not sure if I've heard other people. I had a research friend of mine. She was a real researcher, and we traveled out in groups, and she told me she had a case in Missouri where a woman and her daughter were abducted, and they had the electrical shocks just like I did. But that's the first I heard of it. When I told this researcher, it took her about a half an hour to think about where she heard that before. So I thought, okay, is something new going on with me? Are they using a different anesthetic, or what's going on? But yeah, that electrical shock, it's noisy and it's scary, and apparently it brings you through dimensional walls, because my dead sister talked to me, or either that or they use my mind as a recorder. So yeah, they, my wife, she's a believer through me. She's actually seen a couple of things at a distance. Now, a lot of times when I see something at a distance, like an orb or something, I don't really call it a UFO until I can really confirm it. But the 5 that I saw close up, I know they were UFOs. I know exactly what they were. so that they're so close. I can see the the details of it. So that's. But these other things that I see, you have this night vision. This, I guess they night goggles. I guess it's the third degree night goggle, and you can see. I guess orbs going high up. I mean, we're talking about in space level where the astronauts and everybody plays. And you see two of them together, they say those are UFOs. If you see one going across the sky, that's usually a satellite. And I saw in Sedona, I was looking through these night goggles, I saw about 3 pairs of 2 orbs flying together. And they said that's UFOs crossing, going around our planet. So those are fun to play with, but all you see is orbs. I'd rather see them close up like I did. That way I know what I'm looking at. Orbs don't excite me much anymore because I've seen the real things. So I guess the more and more you go in this, the bigger high you want to get out of it. And I want to meet. I keep asking myself, and I talk out loud. I want to meet these people. Are these dimensional people, whoever they are, dimensional ETs, or are they're here on Earth? They live underground or whatever. Dulcie is a good point, but I'd like to meet these people and find out what am I missing. Instill some wisdom and knowledge to me. Show me something that I can help mankind or humankind with. Why play with me? Why play with my mind, and why abduct me and have all this information that I can't get out? Only bits and pieces, just to let me know, hey, buddy, you've been taken. I think that's how much they're showing me. Just showing me enough to let me know that they got me. That's how I look at it. And I think people, if they were regressed, if we really knew a way to regress our minds, the people that's been abducted, I think we would see quite a bit. I think we might learn something from that.
Well, you're not the only one. I mean, I've heard abductees saying the same thing that you're saying. Why me? Anyway, hey, our time is up, and it went by so fast, Dave.
Yes, I enjoyed it. You're a great radio host, Gary, and if you knew Art Bell, and Art Bell, he gave you a good word. I really love that guy. Art Bell was a great guy. No matter what you told him, he took it with a grain of salt. And he's just like you. He's soft-spoken and great to talk to, and that you can bring out all the information out of the person that you want to talk, because you make them relaxed. You make them. You're like an Art Bell. Okay.
Well,
I hope
thank
you keep it up. I hope you keep going.
Well, you know what? I was in retirement, and I've said this so many times. 2 Septembers back, I get a phone call from Art, which we talk to each other maybe at that point once a month or so. And he says, hey, Gary, stop riding your motorcycle. You need to get on internet talk radio. And he's the one that talked me in getting back into radio after, being retired. It was a big loss when he passed on, and
it was.
Yeah. And it was emotional for me a few days back, because that's the day he died a year later. And I tell you, the funny little quick story, and we got like 2 minutes left. I'm going to just say this. I talked to him maybe like 3 or 4 days before he passed on. And we were talking, and I said to him, I should have bought that book, but you and Whitney wrote, The Superstorm. And he goes, yeah, you can still find copies maybe used on eBay. And I go, yeah, I should have bought a new one. The day after he passed away, I went out to the mailbox, and guess what was there? He sent me the book before he passed on. And I'll tell you, I have not cried. I'm 67. And I was 66 at that point. I never cried probably since grade school, not even through boot camp, military, whatever I went through. I never cried. And I tell you, when I opened that box, and that was that book from Art, I cried like a baby. So it was a huge loss.
Well, he like I said, I always enjoyed him. I loved his voice. When I heard him on the radio, I'd say, there it is. I tuned it in right there. And he just had a great way with people. And he was successful at what he did. and I was one of his his followers for sure, and I envy you for knowing